Hello, today I'm going to talk a little bit about software design. I've been working in the software industry for about 20 years with front end and back end, and today we're going to talk about what does a programmer think about when he starts to work on a project. It's often called as object-oriented design. And the whole idea about this is that when you want to build a program or you write an application, the first thing you usually do is you start to think about what objects do I want to have in the application. You want to write a game, you want characters in your game, and you want the characters to pick up items. That is a starting point for writing an application in object-oriented programming. We start by character. So we have a character that is we will have objects that are characters, but what we also want is a class of characters. Most programming languages, you would write something like this. Class character. And if you want to create new characters, then you would write something like this. You have a player here that is a new character. So then you create an object that is of this class. So you have two things to think about here. You have the class and the object. And the object is an instance of the class. And what is a class? A class is a collection of data types and functions that you can execute on those data types. So you have a character here, for example, that has properties. Okay, so now I wrote some code here. We have a character has a health that can be a number, and maybe it can have an initial value like 10, for example. And we have a function here, take damage, that takes this dot health and subtracts 1. That's minus means subtract 1 from that. So here we have a behavior and data together in a class. So what we think about when we think about class is also inheritance, because you can have other things that inherit from this. Maybe you want a different kind of character, maybe a wizard, for example, that has a mana together with the health number, and then you would have another class here that inherits from that. So now we have another class here that is a wizard that extends the character class, but has also mana, that is a number. But all wizards are characters, so all wizards also have everything that is in this class. And this is a very important concept that we call inheritance. We usually think of it like, if you remember from biology class, you have taxonomies, like you have birds, you have different animals, you have birds are in different groups, mammals that are different groups, etc. And maybe we can have a picture of that here. So that is how we usually think about classes and class hierarchies. And the class hierarchies are the different entities that you want in your game. So that's the first thing, and we usually draw things like boxes. We visualize these things often. So we have character here, and then we have wizard here, and then we have maybe warrior here, and then we maybe have a special kind of warrior here that is a knight, for example. So we build a class hierarchy out of things. That is not the only way you can arrange things. Actually, a lot of the time, for example, when you build databases, typically they don't have the concept of inheritance. And also there's a limitation when it comes to inheritance. Like if you create an object here in our system, You write this, right? You create a new and then you have a class here. So whenever something is created this way, it will stay like that forever. A character that is a wizard, it can never become anything else. And that is, of course, that can be a limitation, for example, if you want to create a game where characters can evolve and learn different skills. In that sense, sometimes you don't want to use inheritance as the way of doing this. Then we have something else, which is called object composition. And that is, instead of something is something, this character is a wizard. We could also say this character has wizard ability. So instead of being things, we have things. And then you can have a more flexible way of designing things, and also it's dynamic. It can change during runtime. You can have in this character here, we can have a weapon, for example, and that is of type weapon. And we set it to null. You start without the weapon, and then we can have a class weapon here that has damage, that is a number, equals 3. So we can have so by giving this, you can create a weapon object and set it as a value on the character, and then the character plus his weapon can have certain abilities. And when your character strikes an enemy, instead of having a damage statistics on your character, you have the damage statistics on your weapon. So because of that, you can combine objects. We have two main concepts here. We have class in inheritance, and we have that is this from this, but we also have composition here. And these are ways of how we build things when we build an app. We think about what objects exist, what classes exist in your world that you're trying to build, because we imagine that inside your app there's a world of objects. And what classes are they, and how are they composed? A character can have a weapon, for example. A wizard can be a character, for example. So those are the concepts that we think of before we start anything else. Those are kind of the skeleton of your app. And then later on you will add functions that do things with these things, that make things happen, that makes characters move and do stuff. But that's usually the next step. The first thing we do is often to just do as we say it, object-oriented design. And as I mentioned, if you want to do database design, it's actually pretty similar. Then we talk about entity relationship diagrams, and you also write. We can write a small entity relationship diagram. That's just like we have a character here. A box, and then he has a weapon, and there can be a one-to-one relationship here. A weapon can only belong to one character, and one character can only have one weapon, for example. So that is when you design databases, you do in a very similar way, but you focus more on the composition. So that's kind of the start of how programmer thinks when we start designing things.
Thanks.